Welcome everyone to this World Childless Week webinar on childlessness and sexuality. My name is Jodie. I'm the founder of Gateway Women, and it is my great pleasure to be here this evening with my amazing guests. And I'm also, just have to say, a little bit overexcited about this. It's been a long time in the planning. We've already had, it's the evening in Europe right now, we've already had an amazing day of submissions and videos and podcasts and things on the theme of childlessness and sexuality for World Childless Week. So after this is finished, do go over to the World Childless Week website, click on the Childless and Sexuality Day, and have a look at all of the other amazing submissions. And welcome to Yvonne. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly introduce you to all of the panelists, and then we're going to kick off. We're probably going to talk a little bit about all the kind of topics that will start to pop up in the Q&A, and also what's sort of present for us. And I think I will invite each of you to check in with what's present for you around this topic today. So I'll just, on these celebrity squares on my screen, I'll introduce people on that order. So we have, on my top left, I have the amazing Bindi Shah. Bindi is a British Asian writer and meditation teacher based in the UK, offering weekly online meditation classes for childless women. Some of you probably already know those, and is the creator of the Daily Truth Oracle cards as a tool for meditation. In her late 40s, Bindi and her husband are childless due to, oh dear, I can't pronounce it, adenomyosis, a chronic health condition similar to endometriosis, which eventually led to a hysterectomy. Now, you'll be able to find links for all of the panelists at the end of the interview or on the Gateway Women website. I would also like to introduce you to Karen Enfield, who is top right. So Karen Enfield, who's coming from Belgium tonight, is a trainee grief therapist, Gateway Women workshop facilitator, and Gateway Women's operations director. Thank goodness. A World Childless Week ambassador. Karen's 42, Dutch, and she and her husband, English husband, live in Belgium. They're childless due to Karen's cervical cancer in her early 30s, leading to a hysterectomy. Next on my celebrity squares is Kate Kaufman. Hello, Kate. Is an unabashed elder in her late 60s and a great role model to me, and the author of Do You Have Kids? Life When the Answer Is No. Like Karen and myself, Kate is a World Childless Week ambassador. She also writes the Unapparent blog for Psychology Today, exploring the issues faced by non-parents. Kate is childless due to failed infertility treatments with her ex-husband and is now single after divorce. Next up is Katie Seppi. Hello, Katie. Katie's the founder of Chasing Creation and the owner of Instagram, as far as I'm concerned. And she's also the first World Childless Week champion this year. So she's the creator of the 2021 Outstanding Childless Collective Summit, which brought together 27 speakers from across the childless world for an amazing 4-day online event. Maybe Katie's going to tell us she's doing it again, if she can bear to do it. Katie's in her late 30s, and she and her husband are childless due to Katie's endometriosis, failed infertility treatments, and her subsequent hysterectomy. I may have got her age wrong. Just there. And Katie de Jong, is it pronounced that way, Katie? Yeah, it is. Okay, thank you. Is a feminist philosopher, how cool is that? Sex educator, and the founder of The Pleasure Anarchist, a project created to help people reimagine a new relationship to their sexuality after the trauma of infertility. In her early 40s, she and her husband are childless after infertility. Victoria Firth is up next, also in red. British girls, so there's a lot of red here this evening. Is a performer, writer and theatre director from Yorkshire, which is in the north of England. Now in her late 40s, she is childless due to social infertility, with particular relevance to her identity as a gay woman, which she explored in her fun and feminist one-woman show, How to Be Amazingly Happy. She's now considering female sexuality and shame for her forthcoming work, The Butter Piece. BB Lynch, Dame BB Lynch, as she's known on Twitter, is a controversial British journalist, check your insurance now, writer and broadcaster. She co-hosted the adult show After the Watershed on BBC Radio Sussex and the Good Sex, Bad Sex podcast for Metro. Now in her mid-50s, BB is childless after not finding a man to have children with and is single and not dating. She's a World Childless Week ambassador as well and a passionate voice for the single childless experience. And last of all, before I start to feel like a BBC continuity, and here we are, is a bad one as well. Is Yvonne John, now is that on the list? Oh, we are. A Black British author and activist for childless women of colour in her early 50s, as well as a licensed Gateway Women workshop facilitator and World Childless Week ambassador. Now single, she and her ex-husband are childless due to her unexplained infertility, followed by adenomyosis and a hysterectomy. And just to let you know, the other person you can see, Sonia, Gateway Women. Sonia is part of our team and she is moderating the Q&A chat this evening. So if you have a question for one of the panelists, just pop it in the Q&A box and we will do our best to come round to it later. And so I want to open it, and it would be lovely maybe to have a check-in from each of you about where you're at today, what you're bringing to this. It's a huge thing to speak publicly about this. So I just kind of wanted to sort of open with a little bit of self-care for us. How are we doing today with this, Bindi?
It's difficult. It's a difficult topic. It's not something that I talk to people about every day. So it has been it's been interesting to see my journey from when you asked me to do it to now, and actually getting more comfortable with it myself and speaking to people about it, getting other people's views as well. I've been doing like a little bit of research as well. So just getting comfortable with it myself. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a journey for each of us. I mean, my piece that I published today, the essay that I published today for World Childless Week about, reclaiming my erotic self after childlessness. I haven't felt that nervous about publishing something for a long time, Karen, how are you doing?
Yeah, that nervousness you just mentioned, I'm definitely feeling that as well. It's kind of like a taboo subject within a taboo subject, and so and I know that I often speak before I think, so I'm a little bit apprehensive about what I might be blurting out tonight. But hey ho, it is what it is. I'm really pleased to be here amongst royalty, childless royalty almost. It's just brilliant to be here with all of you, and I really am looking forward, because I do feel that is such an important topic to talk about, because as far as I know, every childless woman I have spoken to who is talking about her childless grief and her journey as she finds her way through life as a childless woman, I haven't heard anybody say that it hasn't impacted their sexual intimate life. So I think from that perspective, yay us for breaking open that taboo.
Thank you. Thanks, Karen. Kate?
Kate's been thinking, talking, living sex and being childless for many days now, getting ready for this and writing about it and thinking about what is important for me to try to share. And like everyone, I'm a little Twitter, but I do feel immersed, particularly after listening to the Full Stop podcast for today, as well as reading the beautiful things that people are writing. So I think we've got a rich conversation ready to go. Thanks.
Thank you, Kate. Katie Seppi.
Yeah, so I think I'm the self-care piece for me is bringing in my boundaries that I set up when I started Chasing Creation, which is that I don't often talk about my husband because he's asked me not to. So thinking about what I'm comfortable sharing and what I'm not. But I think that, over the last few years, I've been running support circles and just having conversations with others in the childless community. I feel like I have gotten kind of a pulse on generally how women have been impacted in this area. So I'm excited to, have a larger conversation about some of the things that I've heard and seen within the community. So
thank you. Thanks, love. Katie DeYoung.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
I am so grateful to be here with you all today and talk about this subject. I feel like all the apprehension and nervousness and all those uncertain feelings are precisely the reason why I am doing what I'm doing with the Pleasure Anarchist. After infertility, my own journey with it, I realized that, not only was no one really publicly talking about this topic in particular. But it was such a part of my own journey that I felt like I had to do that. And so so yeah, I'm fairly comfortable talking about this topic just because I think about it and talk about it all the time. But it's a totally different realm entering into the conversation in like a non-theoretical sense, you know, when we're talking about like our personal experiences, you know, that is nerve-wracking. So yeah, I just hope to provide, I guess, a sex educator's perspective on this.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Victoria.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about this really. It feels like a new thing to do. And I guess when Jodie invited me, I was really aware of the sense of exposure of coming to speak about something that feels really personal and really vulnerable. And potentially that is another area of personal failure that I'm trying to reframe in some kind of way. But I think that actually over the last few months, I've made some big strides forward in terms of reclaiming my sexual sense of myself. So I feel quite, you know, full of excitement about that. And also I got so much out of the previous webinar because it just helped on the same subject, because it just helped me to really make some connections with what was going on for me, because someone else had put it out there as a theme and as a topic, and is something that is happening to other people as well. And so I'm really pleased to support that conversation.
Thank you so much, Victoria. Bibi, darling.
See, I'm wondered if there's something wrong with me, because I don't feel I don't feel nervous about this, and I don't feel like I'm crossing any boundaries, but I am the woman who was once told by a magazine editor that what she likes about me is that I call a vagina a vagina. I don't quite know what I was supposed to do with that. But what is interesting is when Jodie approached me about being on this panel and on this webinar, and I'm very flattered and honoured being asked, and hello everyone, I was like, I've got nothing to say. Because that
was so interesting when you said that.
Yeah. And I was like, I've got nothing to say about this because I've never thought about this. And then of course I'm like, am I allowed to swear?
Yeah.
Okay, I've got fucking loads to say. So I'm just like, so I've got masses to say, but I'm intrigued why it's the taboo in the taboo. But maybe I'm double bluffing my brain so much that I didn't even know it was such a taboo that I hadn't even thought about it. Do you know what I mean? But I'm intrigued by all of this, about what people are going to say about it.
Thank you. And you know, great to have you on the panel. And I feel a little bit the same about when I started talking about my childlessness, and people like, gosh, it's, you know, so brave of you to talk about all these things. And to me, it wasn't. To me, it felt like something I really wanted to talk about. And I'm just, you know, it's each of us is comfortable talking about different things, and you're comfortable talking about sex and button soup, and we'll get on with that. You're all here, no doubt. We all send pictures around of the button soup. By the way, it's not sexual, I don't think, but you know, it's a strange place. Anything can happen in Brighton.
It's a replacement.
Yvonne, good evening, my love. How are you?
Hey, I am good. Yeah, for me, I'm very curious about what's going to be said today, especially from Bibi. I think for me, there is a taboo. Myself and Bindi had talked about this before we had, a couple of weeks ago, before we had joined this call. And you know, the recognition that culturally that it's a huge taboo, you know, you don't talk about it, you know, it happens because babies appear. That's probably about it. And I know for myself, dating in my 20s and having very difficult experiences, and how I felt I was sexualized by men and not being able to actually cope with that, to then being now at 50 wanting to reclaim that, because I thought it was quite a bad thing to be seen that way. And, you know, I wasn't, in my mind, I wasn't putting anything out there. I wasn't going, hey, come and get me, I want to have sex. I was trying to hide away from that, but I had a lot of men chasing me and essentially, you know, wanting to have sex, which I couldn't manage and I couldn't deal with. But now in my 50s, I feel like I want to reclaim that younger self, because I feel there's such a power in being able to say yes or no. And I'm in this place of exploring it now. So I'm really curious to see how this conversation goes and what people and other people's experiences around it and what they have to say as well.
Thank you. Well, we have a question which feels like a really good one to kick off with. And please, anyone who wants to ask a question or leave a comment, just use the Q&A box. It can't be seen. It's just to us and other people who are asking questions. And even if we do read out your question, we won't use your name. So please just pop your questions in there. So a question: how do you get your mojo back after years of infertility? And I wanted to pass this question to the two Katies, really, who I think have both done enormous work, I think, opening up this conversation online. What would you say to someone about that?
Well, this is like, in my mind, this is like the question that people mostly have. And I think it relates to desire specifically, like, how do I feel desire again? I don't know where it went. I don't know how to get it back. Like, that's how I personally interpret the whole getting my mojo back. And I think it looks different for everybody, because so many of the things that impact how we feel our desire are so different. So infertility and childlessness, can impact how we view ourselves, how we view our femininity, how we experience our bodies and our body image, how we feel desirable, how we feel desired impacts how we feel our desire. Does that make sense? Like, if we feel desired, we oftentimes feel desirable and desire us. So if those things are impacted, then there's just sort of like a lot of different facets to exploring this topic. So I don't think it's one thing, but mostly it's like it's unpacking the stuff that's underneath what is impacting your ability to feel desire. And I mean, it might be like, not that hormones are simple, but like there's so many things that contribute to how we feel desire and our quote unquote mojo. So I think it's just trying to like kind of narrow in on what those things are for you. And then from there's a variety of different things, but.
Thank you. And your work, speaks to that. So, anyone who is looking to explore that a bit more, I direct them to The Pleasure Anarchist. Katie, Seppi, do you have some thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really hard because everyone, like Katie said, is impacted differently. So in my case, I felt like I have my sexuality, and then over the years, like different layers of things kept smashing it down. And so for me, it's been unpacking a lot of different layers, and it becomes really complex because it's not as easy as just, when I was in my 20s and feeling desired in any way would get me excited. And I was like, yeah, this feels great. It's, I think the overlap that I have because of my experience, and then because I talk openly about my experience, it's attracts others who have similar experiences to me, is that there's the layer of infertility, which turns sex into, this thing you're doing to try to create a baby, and it's very mechanical and timed, and there's lots of medicalized things involved. And then even getting out of that, I think for those of us who are also in the chronic illness community, that can have a lot of layers that get added on as well, because there can be pain with sex. It can impact how you see your body, how you feel. And so for me, I've just tried to unpack different layers at a time. So therapy has helped a lot, and getting, the best medical care that I can, and seeing a pelvic floor therapist for pain, and, all these different tools that I've kind of added in over the years. But I think one of the things specifically that has helped me personally is doing more self-exploration and getting back into just having that relationship with myself. So buying some new vibrators and like setting time aside where it's not partnered, but I just get to try to remember what it feels like to feel pleasure and what my body likes and what my body responds to. And having that time to just get reacquainted with myself after, you know, years of just not really wanting much to do with it. So that's been a place where I've started, but it's complicated for sure.
Yeah, and you know, infertility means many different things. You know, there's social infertility. There's, you know, going through infertility as a single woman, as you know, as a gay or queer woman. There are many different ways. I think for me, I didn't have any medical treatments, but I was left with a profound sense of disconnection from my body because I felt it had failed me, and it became the site of actually quite a lot of disgust and hatred. You know, rather than a place. I had to really, really work to really reconnect with my body. I think a lot of my grief was actually stored in my body, and I hated my body kind of as a way, somewhere to kind of put the anger of my grief. And I'd love to bring maybe Victoria and Bibi in on this conversation about, you know, a different angle on kind of finding your mojo again after childlessness when you're single. Do you have some thoughts on that? And maybe you never lost it. I mean, let's keep it open. Maybe, what are your thoughts?
Shall I go first?
Go on then, love.
It's really, there's so much to it, isn't there? There's just a million things. It's like, as you said in my intro, I'm not even dating. So I have encounters, but I don't have dates. I'm not kind of in the market to be with someone. Of course, that's what I want, but I'm not doing that. And I'm like, okay, why am I not doing that? Is that about childlessness? Is that one of the factors? And I think it's age for me and childlessness. And I think the age factor is I'm 55 and there are less available men, you know, kind of my age, a bit younger. There's just less, and I'm also more discerning. So actually, there's less to play with. And then where the childlessness comes in, and I think this is kind of horrible but true, I don't want to be what men seem to want childless me to be. And I think childless women are fetishized by men. And I think it's like, I'm affair fodder. I'm not having affairs, but married men seem to kind of think I'm the other life, the good life, the exciting life, as opposed to what they've got. And I'm not slagging anything off, but, you know, in terms of what they've got, but this is what seems to be happening. And it's like I think they see childless women as carefree and a bit frivolous and not a real person and a complete person. And because they don't see them as complete, me as complete or real, I'm not treated as potential. I'm not treated as a real person that could have a long-term relationship. And I'm really kind of struck by that and horrified by that. And I had I was on a dating site, and geez, I don't know when I'll ever learn that you know, lesson, but I was on a dating site, and this is how I think people treat childless older women. This man, who was so dull, kept messaging me, and all my friends were like, give him a chance, some people aren't good online, he'll be funny in real life. Anyway, if I can give any take home to anyone, it's don't go with that. If they're not funny, they're not funny. Anyway, he wasn't funny, but he sent me a message one day saying, oh, Bibi, I've got to be really honest with you. And I was like, brilliant, fine, he's going to say something interesting. And he went, he said, I've got to say that I could never have a relationship with you because of the age gap, but I've got a thing for hot older women. He was 4 years younger than me. It's like this level, there's just, you're kind of seen as other. And I know I'm assuming that we've all experienced that across the board as being childless in every other way away from intimacy. But as far as intimacy is concerned, for me as a single woman, I'm seeing it as I'm not taken seriously. And can I say one more thing that happened with the married man? We went for a coffee. I think this is all relevant as well, but in terms of why I'm having less sexual intimacy than I would like, because all these other factors are in play. And then the main thing is I don't like how I'm perceived or how men seem to want me to be. This bloke's a friend, he's lovely, he's married, we were having a coffee, and he said it must be much easier dating in your 50s than it is in your 30s when you're, you know, looking for the person to have kids with. And I was like, what? And he said, yeah, because, you know, there's just no pressure, you can do this. And I was going, oh my God, I think it's a million times harder to try and find someone to date when you didn't have the life you wanted, when you've got that loss and that grief. Because to find someone with the emotional intelligence that equals ours anyway, let alone to understand grief and loss of everything, and you know what you wanted and what you've got and blah blah blah, and how they can help you and how they can love you with all of that. So they need to see you as an incredible person, complete plus. Whereas what you seem to get is people not seeing you as complete at all. So I actually think dating in your 50s, I hate to put it down on anyone who's watching this, because I'm sure someone out there exists, but I feel that it's really, really, really difficult. And so that is a really long-winded answer of saying it's impacted, my childlessness has impacted on me in that I'm perceived in a way I don't want to be perceived, because I want more than what's on offer.
Thank you. Really interesting. Kate would like to jump in.
Well, I can't help myself when we're talking about some of the perspective of being an elder, which I have just recently added the unabashed element to it. And I'm going to speak the truth, because one of the things I love what Bibi's saying is we have an opportunity to create our identification. And so I was married for 30 plus years, and I've been divorced for 5, and I've been in the dating world for 2. And what I realized only very, very, very recently is what I have to offer in the world is a level of being unencumbered by some of the weights that come with having kids if you're in the outside world. Which surprises me to say, because I spent so many years trying to incorporate that role into who I am. And it, as we all know, is a rocky road. But what I'm realizing is there's a potency in who I am in the world that is very, very attractive and resonates with people who have, I love the emotional intelligence element of it. And so we have so much potency and so much scope, and it does make it much harder, but it's also extremely appealing. And I don't short shrift it anymore.
Can I please respond to that? Sorry, I literally raised my hand like I'm 88. Kate, it's really good to meet you. Are you fine? Because I agree with that. I think there's it's something appealing and kind of, again, other, and so it seems attractive. But do you see it as going beyond that? Do you see it as something that people find attractive, but actually that's it?
I, like you, I'm pretty darn picky, and I have become now so unabashed about it that it's become a really helpful a screen, if you will. Yeah. And so I enjoy, I mean, one of the benefits of COVID is I fell back in love. Well, I never was in love with myself, but I fell in love with myself during COVID. And so I know I'm fine on my own. And what that has created is a kind of flypaper for higher quality people to come into my life. And I have a very lovely person who's recently come into my life, and it's like, okay, I see you now. I identify you now in ways that I don't think I was that discerning before. And I think I felt a little damaged goods, and I don't feel damaged anymore.
Oh my God, Kate, I want to marry you.
I'll marry you back.
Victoria, I'd love to hear a little bit more about from you. I was just thinking there's quite a few things you could pick up on there.
Yeah, and I guess I'll start with that thing about feeling like damaged goods, because I definitely had problems with like my body image and my sense of my desire and my sense of my sexual self. And I question, like, am I physically damaged? Is this grief, or is this emotional trauma, or like, did fertility treatment physically damage me? Like, because now things are painful that weren't before, or stuff that felt good before didn't now. And I guess I'm pleased to say that a lot of the things that I was worried about are getting better. And I think what actually went on for me was like I regressed. So like when I was in my 20s or my 30s, you know, I was less body confident, or I felt more shame about my own desire, or, you know, I needed a lot of trust and consent with partners, or I want to control things. And I like worked through it. I got over it. Like I matured, and I became like more body positive, and I became more like sex positive. And then just being you know, childless threw me back into a lot of those old feelings and like old habits. And when I realized that, it was kind of helpful, because I was like, okay, cool. So I'm not ruined, and it's not even worse because I did it to myself. It's just that some stuff has come back up, and like some new stuff too, because I'm older now, but I did the work before, I can do the work again. But my first mistake was that I was like, okay, I need to do this work with someone else. So it needs to be in relationship. And that I just didn't get on so well with that. And so now I'm doing it for myself, and that's going much better. So I'm going, oh, I said I'm speaking in terrible vernacular, but it's because I'm a little nervous. But being a sexual woman is important to me. I think it's part of my identity. So I'm thinking about, well, how do I stand in that identity, irrespective of what I'm doing sexually or whether I'm in a relationship? How do I stand in that part of who I am? So how can I express it? And, you know, what comforts my body, if that's what it wants to feel, what makes it feel good? How do I like to move it? You know, I like wild swimming, you know, I like being immersed in water, I like putting potions on my body. I mean, it all seems kind of simple stuff, but it is making a big difference. And I think particularly for me, things about movement, whether it's been gardening or walking or dancing, I came to realize that I just didn't move my stomach for like 5 years. You know, I was just holding my breath and feeling fragile for a long time. And I've got physically really disconnected from myself, as well as being emotionally disconnected. So refinding intimacy with myself, my feelings and my physicality is starting to make a real difference.
That's beautiful. Thank you. I kind of wrote something a little bit similar in the essay I wrote today for World Childless Week about, I think the work for me is recognizing that my erotic self is not necessarily just my sexual self, that she is something bigger and deeper and more powerful than that. It's almost like it's kind of the wildness that I was born with, you know, and it's finding ways back to that wildness and back to the body. And I think in COVID, I've become even more disconnected from my body, because I've spent even more time sitting at screens and communicating in this way. And I have this real strong sense that I need to focus on somehow the kind of things you're talking about, becoming more embodied. And Katie de Jong would like to join.
Yeah, just hearing you talk about the embodied nature of being, like how we get so disconnected from our bodies. And Victoria, when you said your stomach, I just was like, oh yes. Like there are so many parts of my body that I feel like I've just been closed off from for so long. And to me, embodied eroticism is first and foremost, I think we associate eroticism and the erotic with the sexual, with sexuality. And I think that I think when we do that, it's wonderful and lovely, but we're also missing this full scope of just experiencing our bodies and our senses within our bodies. And to me, the erotic is so much more than sexual. It's sensual. And by sensual, I mean like literally our senses, you know, and being able to tune into those desires can be really, really powerful.
Thank you. I wondered, Karen, I wondered if you wanted to join in about, I'm thinking of some of the things you talk about, living from the neck up.
Yeah, yeah, definitely living from the neck up. I think I've literally done that from the moment I had my surgery for cervical cancer. That's how I became childless at the age of 33. So literally a body in bits. And before I was even diagnosed, I was very in tune with my femininity, with my sensuality, my sexuality. It was really just I embraced my body and all that very, very much. And then I literally felt that I came out of hospital with a body in pieces. So I lived from the waist up, basically, because I had scars that I never had before. My body had changed so much. Literally, my anatomy changed. So also, you know, what sounds really weird to say this, but what used to fit inside of me didn't fit anymore, and it hurt and it was painful, and my flesh changed, my everything had changed. So it was such a weird experience to kind of, you know, learn how to kind of reconnect with the part of myself, because I actually called it my war zone. Talk about being shitty to yourself, you know, then to not being loving to yourself, to really actually call that part of your body your war zone. I shied away from it for a very, very long time, and it took. I am married, and I've been with my partner for nearly 20 years, so we went through this together. Explored our sex. I met him in my early 20s, so explored our sexuality. Had a great time doing that together, and then all of a sudden this happened, and I lost interest in the act of sex. I lost, you know, lost a connection with my sensuality, with my sexuality. And also, I didn't feel that. Earlier we were talking about desire, feeling desired, or be your own desire and desire someone else. I didn't feel any of that for a long time. It had literally felt as if everything had just been taken out. And fortunately, I've since then discovered, with the help of therapy, with, you know, intense conversations with my husband, but also with friends, and even also the attention of other men. And I'm not saying here that I have had affairs, but just the attention of other men who did not know my story, hadn't seen my scars, hadn't seen my body pre-surgery and post-surgery, who just met me in the street or anything like that. That also really helped me to say, hey, you know what? Oh, someone's trying to flirt with me, or someone's giving me attention. And that also really helped, just to kind of feel feminine again, and to kind of almost feel desired without pursuing the potential chemistry that could have been there with the other man. And that also helped me kind of reconnect and rediscover my body, and rediscover what intimacy is now in my marriage again as well.
Thank you. Bindi and Yvonne.
Yeah, I just wanted to, because we're talking about the body, so I wanted to bring in around painful sex. So when, especially the adenomyosis, and I've also heard from people with endometriosis as well, it's that painful sex. So it's like, you know, you're in your body and that pain, and then that pain, yes, it's physical pain, but it also stays with you then as the emotional pain. So the next time you're having sex, you're already thinking of it, you're already in that pain. So first of all, it stops you from having sex, which is obviously an issue for the whole fertility thing as well. And then after, when you realize that you are not going to conceive anymore or not have the child, then it's still like, well, you know, just why have sex? It's going to be painful anyway. Why bother? So yeah, I just wanted to bring that into it, because that's a big thing with the chronic illness and with a lot of gynecological issues. And, you know, I used to go to consultants and no one would really say, they wouldn't mention it. So I was like, well, is it just me, or is it a condition? And I only realized afterwards from researching the condition that yes, it is, you know, it is an issue. So yeah.
Well, thank you for that. And before I go to Yvonne, I'm also thinking from a sex educator point of view as well. The association, you know, with the heterosexual association, you know, between sex and penetrative sex, is one that can be broken, and can be broken in, you know, profound and pleasurable ways. But it does require some honest experimentation and conversation, which can be really challenging. And I think that can be where working with a sex educator or working with a sex and relationship therapist can be so powerful, because there can be so many sort of self-taboos and self-judgments and fear to making a change in how the intimacy between the couple is explored. And Yvonne, did you want to speak? And
Yeah, I think Bindi has actually said a lot of my experiences as well, because similarly having adenomyosis, and I didn't know that until about 4 years ago. But my experience of sex in my 20s and 30s was extremely painful. And I'm listening to everything, and I'm realizing how much of a disconnect I had with my body, with myself as a woman, and in a way how everyone else was seeing me. So, you know, as I mentioned earlier, there was I had a lot of male attention, which I couldn't cope with, but I saw that as very negative, because essentially to me it was just about having sex. And then because I was finding sex painful, it was almost like I didn't really want to go there. So, and I remember my body recoiling, you know, just before penetration, because I thought it's just going to hurt and I don't know why I'm even here. So I can't say I truly enjoyed having sex. And because I didn't really enjoy what it meant for me in terms of they just see me in this way and that's not who I really am, and no one really wanted to know me as a person, I actually just didn't enjoy me in those moments. And it's like I lost my identity and I didn't have it and I didn't know who I was. So then also I didn't know how to ask for what I wanted, because I also didn't know what I wanted. So in the absence of conversation and knowing, I didn't even know who to be. So for me, when it came to realizing that I wasn't going to be a mum, there really was that, what's the point of having sex? Because again, you know, during my marriage I was having sex at some point, having sex to try and conceive. And when that wasn't possible, it really was, I'm not interested, I don't want to have sex. So again, I lost another disconnect in with me, hated my womb, my stomach, just didn't want to look at it, kind of hated my womb. So I really had to reconcile my feelings around that when I had or prior to having my hysterectomy, because that had a lot of negative connotations to it as well. And then post hysterectomy, then there was this feeling of, am I sexy anymore? You know, and what will sex be like? Because that was very bizarre. I just didn't know kind of who to be again in that moment. And somehow I started to kind of get a better connection with me, because it stopped being about what other people thought of me and how they saw me, and it was about how I saw me. So when I could see me as this beautiful, sexy, sexual person, it didn't matter what everyone else thought. And then when I could say no to people, I found that so powerful. And like I was in control of my body, in control of me, and then I could then be in the situations I wanted to be in. I could ask for what I wanted, and there's just no shame around it. It was just like unapologetically me, and I just feel so, you know, I'm really enjoying exploring who I am, because, you know, I'm real resistant about traditional relationships now. You know, I feel like it's so much more powerful to be free, and be free to say yes, to say no, to explore, to not explore, but also to embrace what it all means for me and to be okay with it. And it's just such a different experience now. And I never knew I could do that. You know, so it's so great to hear also what's being said, because it's helping me to reconnect with and kind of pull it all back together for me as well.
Thank you. Bibi and Katie Seppi.
Hey, did you want to go first? I've talked loads. Okay. Am I on? Oh my God, there's so much being said in all of this. It's blowing my mind. And I can't, my experience has been so lucky in that I've had no kind of medical procedures or anything like that, or no pain. But I'm wondering, and I hope this doesn't sound flip in any way, I think if we take those away from the situation, and it's almost impossible to, a lot of what we're all describing is, I think, what a lot of women feel when they just get older. Anyway, not even just about not having children and the pain and any procedures or anything, operations people have had. And so there's something like really incredible what we're all saying here, which is that, you know, I'm still looking for a traditional relationship, but that you don't need it. And it is about kind of going, no, actually, I'm this and there, and therefore, and everything else changes. I'm shocked and horrified that any consultant who's given you some kind of, and such an invasive procedure in every single sense, doesn't then talk afterwards and give you any other help. I think is shocking. But Lumen, the dating app for over 50s, did a survey, and I think it was something like 50 something, oh God, something like, I'm so bad with figures, really high figures, let's say 80% of over 50s were having their most adventurous sex ever. And the reason was, it's what you were saying, Jodie, which is they varying, because there may be erectile dysfunction or, you know, dry vagina. So there's all issues that sex may be painful. They're moving away from penetrative, and therefore the world is opening up. But if you want to go penetrative, there's a sex toy, and I'm going to get the name wrong, and I think it's Laura DiCarlo, and I think she's the designer, and it goes for your, if you do want to use this bit of it, G-spot and clitoris at the same time. And I had to review it, and I lost a very happy bank holiday weekend. So I'm suggesting, if you go for it, book some time off. But it's, you know, sex toys, someone mentioned sex toys earlier. Honestly, that is such an incredible way of just getting that feeling back if you've lost that feeling.
Thank you. And I think there is still a lot of stigma, you know, around, you know, using sex toys. I mean, when Katie Seppi said, you know, that she, you know, you bought some and you were exploring pleasure with yourself, you know, there was I don't know if it's a very British part of me or just a very uptight part of me that thought, oh my God, what must her husband think? You know? So, you know, and it's, you know, I would sort of feel, to do that, I would need to negotiate with my partner, because otherwise I'd sort of feel I was having an affair secretly with myself, which is like bizarre. But anyway, that's just, there's a window into my mind. You probably didn't need it, Katie.
Well, just a few things have come up for me. First, I will say, I didn't start masturbating till I was a lot older in life. And a lot of that is because I was raised Mormon, and you are taught you absolutely do not touch yourself. It is like an ultimate taboo. Like it's a sin, right? You don't do it. And so it took me a while to unwind a lot of those. And so yeah, that's a whole nother topic about, you know, what we're taught to do and not do with our own bodies. But I just want to touch on a few things that came up, because I think for those of us who have had a lot of medical experiences, either through infertility treatments or chronic illness of reproductive issues, there can be so much medical trauma too that comes up. And this came up in some conversations that I was having, that those experiences that you have at the doctors, where you're getting poked and prodded and tested, and your body's being talked about like something that isn't a part of you, that can really stick with you too. Like, I was getting a tattoo done a couple weeks ago, and the tattoo artist, you know, is laying on this thing that looks very similar to what you lay on at the gynecologist, one of those padded cushion things. And he said, scoot up. And I immediately like almost burst into tears, just having my body feeling, you know, laying down on a table like that, and having him say that, because it reminded me of, you know, the 20 years of doctor's appointments that it took me to get to my endometriosis diagnosis, and the dismissals, and all of the different procedures that I've had. And so that disconnection from your body, I think, can partly come from that as well, where you're having all these medicalized experiences where your body is being treated like this separate thing. So I just wanted to touch on that. And then, you know, a few people have brought up painful sex, and I think there are a few tools that I just wanted to mention, because I know this is very common. One is, there's a company called Ohnut. It's OHNUT, and they actually make these like silicone, they kind of look like donut shapes, and you can stack them. So they're about this wide, but then you can stack them up. And it's basically something that can go around the shaft of a penis. And if you're having sex, it can limit how far it penetrates. And so if depth is an issue, that can help. Another thing that my doctor has given me is like a prescription that's basically a mix of, it's like a cocktail. It's a suppository that has nerve stuff in it to help with nerve pain, and painkillers, and muscle relaxants. It's just got all kinds of stuff in it, and that has been very helpful for me. Another thing is like CBD suppositories have been helpful, I think, for a lot of women. And physical therapy for pelvic floor therapy was really helpful for me after my hysterectomy, because I realized that a lot of the pain I was having during sex was actually from the muscles in my pelvic floor just being so damaged from years of doing this, reacting to pain from 20 years. So there are some things that can help, but I think that another thing that's also been brought up is that when we're hetero couplings, I think that the emphasis can, when we talk about sex, we mean penis and vagina, and that's what we associate with sex. But one of the most helpful things that my physical therapist told me was, why don't you just take penis and vagina sex off the table for a few months and see what happens? And that was so freeing for me and opened up different things to explore and different ways to experience pleasure when I didn't have to worry about that fear connection of as soon as my husband kisses me, my body goes into this like, oh my God, this is gonna hurt. It's like, it's so hard to decouple that. And so that's been helpful. So just wanted to throw in those couple of things.
That's so helpful of you, Katie, and it brings me back to something that Stella Duffy said on our last webinar on this topic, and it just blew my mind as Stella often does, about how for the heterosexual community, sex is so tied to reproduction. And that penis and vagina sex is so tied to reproduction. She said, you need to queer up your sex lives, decouple, penetration and sex, decouple reproduction and sex, and really bring back pleasure. And she talked about how different it was for her as a long-term partnered queer woman, that also that they had both experienced pregnancy and miscarriage. There was such tenderness in that, but also their sex had never been about making a baby. And it just really opened my eyes to how powerfully constructed the hetero narrative is around sexuality and intimacy, and how limiting that is. And how much it controls me, even though I don't really want it to, and I'm trying to break out of it. And this, doing something like this for me is just me in a way trying to help myself break out of it too. Karen.
I just wanted to add back the menopause and dryness, and was that as I was starting to engage again in sexuality at a significantly postmenopausal age, arousal was directly related to creating a whole different environment in my vagina, and that moisture came back. So it's just kind of a nice benefit from arousal that I was very extremely pleasantly surprised, let me just say.
Okay, thank you, Kate. Karen.
Thank you. I'm amazed by everything that's been said so far already. I feel that this could go on for another hour. But what I want to say is I want to acknowledge also what has come up in the Q&A is about how to reconnect with the body and learn to love your body and forgive your body. And I do want to touch upon that, because that has been such an instrumental part of my journey following my surgeries and stuff, and and the painful sex, and using tools to stretch up again, just to stretch my vagina again after surgery and stuff like that, which makes it very, very, very unsexy. But eventually I had to actually tell myself and teach myself how to forgive my body and how to be grateful for what my body was still capable of. And that took a hell of a lot of work. That took therapy, that really took a lot of grieving, that really took a lot of acceptance. And most of all, what it really took was trust in my own body, and also allowing my body to kind of forgive itself, but me also to forgive my body for what it had been through, but also for what it had put me through, if that makes sense. So I really had to learn how to do that. So I did healing rituals, I did letting go rituals, I did dance therapy, I did workshops and stuff, just to kind of reconnect just with the body. Breathing exercises helped, yoga helped, and I know these are all kind of almost sound a bit like they're like a cliche, but they really did help me to make those reconnections. And it's such a simple act. I think Katie de Jong, you also mentioned it earlier, a simple act of just touching yourself. And that can start with a beautiful, simple exercise, just getting yourself a really nice, body cream or body butter or anything like that. And just kind of, after when you come out of the shower, kind of just, and I literally started with just my hands, where I bought a hand cream that I really love the smell of, and I just kind of rubbed my hands every day with it, and then I started including the rest of my body, till eventually I also okay, I've done everything up except my stomach area, so I gently kind of reintroduced myself to that area as well, and I spoke to it very kindly, very gently, and really learned how to forgive myself, and how to kind of, Kate said, during COVID, you fell in love with yourself again. I also had to re-fall in love with my body again, even though, it's still not the body I had before, but it is the body I have now. And it is the body that is actually giving me pleasure again.
Thank you. And just so you know, there is a whole chapter in my book on forgiving your body and reconnecting to your body. So there you are, little plug. I even have it here. The book, Living the Life Unexpected. We have a question, and I don't know if Victoria, you can weave this into what you were going to say or not, and if not, that's fine. And the question is, if I'm currently in a state of feeling a total sense of disgust towards sex and feel completely dead. I'm single, so it doesn't really matter. I would challenge that. But this is very out of character for me. It's too early for menopause. I wonder if it could be a grief response. I resonate so deeply with that question. Do you feel you can say something to that, Victoria?
Yeah, I mean, not from a professional point of view, but just from a personal one, in that I think for me, grief and lots of all the feels were a big part of what was going on for me. I feel that my journey to identifying as childless not by choice involved a lot of trauma, both in relationships and through medical intervention, and processing trauma and grief has been a big part of my recovery. And Jodie asked me earlier to maybe reflect a bit on a performance piece that I made, which was during lockdown when people were touch starved. They couldn't connect through touch, and I made some very short videos about self-touch, holding one's own hand, self-hugging, and they were slightly tongue-in-cheek but also really genuine about how we might give ourselves that sense of connection at times when we couldn't do it at other times and in other ways. And some of the feedback I got from people was that some people found it really moving, and I think they were grieving the loss of relationship that they were having during lockdown. They were grieving the loss of loved ones, and so that self-touch in a way was very moving for them when they were guided through it. And so for me, some of the things that we're talking about in terms of reconnecting with the body and touching the physical self is good for rediscovering one's own eroticism, but bringing a presence to being with your body, for me, also gives the opportunity to let some grief come out if it's ready to in small ways. And that's, for me, has been in healing on both levels.
Thank you so much, Victoria. I just want to say to those who are watching live, I'm sorry we haven't had a chance to explore all the questions. This is an absolutely massive topic. We could probably stay here for a good few hours just to get through. And all of the things that have been suggested, I will put them in the notes that accompany the video when I send it out as sort of the edited version. Bibi, you're up last, my love. Do you want to close us out?
I haven't got a song prepared.
Yvonne, do you have a song?
No. I wanted to say, well, first of all, I thought I had nothing to say on this subject. And the reason I had less to say about it is because I had a million things to learn about it. And honestly, you've all blown my mind. And there are things that I'm now thinking, oh yeah, that was grief for me. That was this and that was that. And so, that's incredible. To the person who asked about, saying that they feel just kind of dead and completely disconnected. Again, I hope this doesn't sound flip, but I think exercise helps so much. Just in that it's kind of a way to push everything away but take control in some way. And I think and also that it releases endorphins, and the better you feel about yourself. And I don't know, I think that might be an idea. But what I wanted to ask is, because I'm not in a relationship, so I don't have a partner. It's going to be an impossible one to quickly answer, but for the people here that do have partners but are having weren't wanting sex, or their libido gone, or how did that impact on your relationship, and how did you negotiate that, or not negotiate, that's totally the wrong word, navigate that with your partner?
You asked that 1 minute before we close.
I'm so sorry.
But it's such an important question, and many people watching will be in that place right now. So I would love to hear from one of you who've been through that experience.
Yeah,
Karen.
sure. Yeah. It nearly broke my marriage. That's the honest answer, because once the sex goes, the intimacy went, the desire was completely out of the door, and I literally was like, why are you with me? Why am I with you? There is nothing that is connecting us anymore, because and we really had to work super hard, and fortunately we did, but it took a hell of a lot of work, and still takes work to this day, to be completely honest with you, is to keep making those connections and to keep consciously choosing each other over again, and actually making the conscious, hey, I want to discover what else we can discover, despite all the things we've lost. So what else is still there? And are we okay to keep choosing each other again, and to keep exploring this journey together, and also, and to be really open about it. Hey, what is it that you need? What is it that I need? Can I fulfill that need for you, or can you fulfill that need for me? And perhaps have the conversation. Okay, hey, if there's something I can't fulfill for you, or a need that you have that I can't fulfill anymore, or whatever, what are the options? What are we open to? How far are we willing to go together as a couple as well? So there is, for me, it has really taken us both out of our comfort zone, also in the sense of what are we comfortable with discussing, and how much, full disclosure. Well, we had to go complete full disclosure, and it was scary as fuck, but it was also very, very healing, to be honest with you. Yeah.
And I can imagine, one of my catchphrases, honesty and intimacy are often two versions of the same thing, and that level of honesty in your relationship, I can imagine whatever it did or it didn't do about what was happening physically for your intimacy. I can imagine that there will have been extraordinary emotional intimacy that came out of that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Yvonne, my love.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly say that there's a real permission piece in this. Wherever you're, whether you're in a relationship, not looking for one, or, mine is non-traditional, there is something around giving yourself permission to ask what you need. Because in the absence of that, I think you don't get what you want, you don't get what you need. And that's what, for me, because I couldn't do that when I was in a relationship. I didn't know how to ask. And now I'm learning, I'm finding my voice, I'm learning to be brave, and I'm learning to ask and explore, and unashamedly, unapologetically do that. Because with the shame, with the apology, I shut down. So I'm giving myself permission to be me and be okay with who that is.
That's very, very powerful, Yvonne. Thank you. Bindi, last words.
Yes, just quickly, with the intimacy that Bibi was talking about, and just finding intimacy in different ways. So I always find, communication and talking is really, really important, and really just to be gentle. So sex, yes, in a marriage is so important, of course, but it's not the only thing that is important, and it's the communication, the talking, finding intimacy in different ways, doing things together, and then building it, because I do feel that, so I had my hysterectomy a couple of years ago, so I do feel that that's shifted as well. So I'm on that journey, and for the moment, it's different sexually, but I do feel that, it will grow. So I think I just, hold that and just be gentle with ourselves. Yeah.
Thank you. And I just wanted to say that, I was single for many years, and I really thought that everyone else was having loads and loads of sex. And one of the things, is I've sort of discovered from, the privilege of gateway women and really hearing people's personal stories, is that it's not always the case. But I think also, a physical relationship where, you are in a partnership, where there isn't much sex or there's no sex can also be a very happy relationship. You know, I just wanted to put out there, there's this idea that everyone is having loads of sex and that's what we're all meant to be doing. And I think our eroticism is part of our life force, it's part of our birthright. It's not something that belongs to someone else. And we can all learn to treasure it, whatever our partnership situation. And damn it, I think the world would be a better place if we did. You know? So thank you so much to Bindi and Karen and Kate and Katie and Victoria and Bibi and Yvonne, and thank you in the background to Sonia, who's been doing a sterling job monitoring the chat. I'm so sorry we didn't get to all of the questions. It was like this last time we did it, we could have stayed on for 6 hours. Many of you may be members of the Gateway Women online community. Please do pop in there and continue the conversation there. Thank you again to World Childless Week and to Steph and to her amazing ambassadors. I'm very proud to have 4 of them on this call with me. So thank you so much and goodbye from all of us. Bye.
Bye.